a lot of people stumble over like trying to get started, and you can figure it out as you go. Just, that's just sort of the motivation, I guess, is like if you are dedicated to it and follow something through, you can make it go just about anything.
This is the How to Quit Working Show. Jeff Steinman believes entrepreneurship is the only true path to freedom. That's why he created the How to Quit Working Show, where you'll hear stories, insights, and inspiration from lifestyle fanatics who left their soul-sucking 9-to-5 job forever. Now, here's your host, author, entrepreneur, and ultimate lifestyle fanatic, Jeff Steinman.
Hello and welcome to the How to Quit Working Show. We've got such a great show today. We're going to be talking to Brandon Checketts, who started multiple successful businesses, and this is one of those $1 million businesses. So he's not just running a little tiny software company. He's started multiple successful software companies, and he's going to talk specifically about some of the unique challenges and some of the unique opportunities that are available in the software industry. I know we have a lot of folks out there who have interest in starting some sort of a software company, so I think this will be a really useful show for you. Speaking of people who want to start companies, if you want to go over and talk to some people, other people just like you who are working jobs and want to quit those jobs and start a business, go over to howtoquitworking.com/group. That's where our free Facebook group is, and that's where you can jump into a conversation with other people just like you, talk about the things that you're struggling with, get help, get advice, interact with me, interact with our How to Quit Working coach, Heather Osgood, and just make some friends. So go to howtoquitworking.com/group and go join us on Facebook. It is free and it is completely private and confidential. None of your Facebook friends will be able to see that you've joined a group called How to Quit Working, and nobody will be able to see what you post in the group unless they are also part of the group. So it's completely private. It's a completely supportive place, and a place where we have a lot of fun and have a lot of really good conversations. So go over to howtoquitworking.com/group and join us over there. And now, without any further blabbing on from me, let's talk to Brandon Checketts. Brandon, welcome to the How to Quit Working Show.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. I like to talk to entrepreneurs who've done a lot of different things. We talk to a lot of kind of smaller one-man shows, but we're talking to some bigger folks that have started bigger businesses with more revenue, been at it for a longer time, and you're one of those guys. So I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all this stuff. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in entrepreneurship, because it was a long time ago, right?
Well, yeah, Jeff, I've been an interviewer, or I've been a entrepreneur for quite a long time now. I've, even at the young age of probably 10 or 12, I was selling snow cones and candy to neighborhood kids. But my first real business started when I was about 16 years old. My parents helped me to start a computer repair and computer sales store. With like a poor retail location. And so I've gone from that. I worked for a couple larger companies, but I've always done stuff on the side. And so finally had the courage, I guess, to make a full-time go out of it and some success from that. This allowed me to continue that on.
Excellent. What was, tell us a little bit about that point at which you, because like you said, you worked a couple jobs on and off, but was there a point at which you said, you know what, I don't think this whole job thing is for me. I think entrepreneurship is the way to go?
I don't know. I guess I've always kind of known I wanted to do something on my own, because I never really liked not having that control and working for a larger company. So I really enjoy kind of doing whatever I want to do, and I'm a little distracted by things sometimes, maybe a little bit too much, but even when I was working for other companies, I kind of knew that I wanted to do something on my own as well.
Excellent. Well, what was the first major company that you started?
The first really kind of successful one has been, the first successful one has been BookScouter, I guess, which is the one that's sort of allowed me to do everything full time and do a full time business on my own without doing anything for like a real job on the side. So BookScouter was started about in 2007. That's about 7 or 8 years ago now.
Okay. Tell us about BookScouter.
Well, BookScouter started when I was working kind of remotely, part-time for a previous employer, doing freelance stuff on the side as well. I had one of my wife's friend was blogging about how to get out of debt, and she wrote a blog post about how she was selling her old college textbooks and trying to get the most money for those to pay off her debts. And so she was looking at 5 or 6 different websites, trying to figure out which one of those would offer her the most money for her book. I'd done something similar with a little bit of price comparison with one of my side projects, and so I figured, hey, I could try to tackle this and make a little tool for her to use to make that easier. So BookScouter was sort of born in that, probably 1 or 2 weekends as I threw together some code and made it work.
Oh, wow.
And so, she talked about it on her blog. It sort of spread to other those personal finance type of blogs pretty quickly, and got some initial traffic from that. And I think the first month that we had it out there, I had one of my 5 or 6 vendors on there was paying me a commission, and I made like $40, and that was amazing. And I just figured, hey, we can maybe do a little bit more with this. So it kind of has grown from there. It ended up being a combination of a good product and good timing in the market as well.
Cool. So BookScatter is a place where you can go to sell your old textbooks, right? And
yeah, that's right. I mean, it originally started out with the intent of being aimed directly at college students who are selling their textbooks online, and that's still a very, very core piece of the audience. But we also have found that we've got a lot of small book resellers on there as well.
Okay.
Who are, instead of looking up their 3 to 5 books per semester, they're looking up 300 to 500 books per day, or 3,000 to 5,000 books per day from their inventory, trying to sell those as well. So it's kind of a mix of those 2 different customer bases that we have there.
Excellent. Tell us about what other businesses do you have?
Oh, so we started BookScouter, and as that grew to become successful, I found that a lot of these people are buying and reselling books, and books are fairly commodity. I can find books myself, so I started a sort of a liquidation type of business, where we'd buy books in bulk from people that had books that were lost in the mail or that were given into thrift stores, that kind of thing. So we started a business that ended up being fairly large as far as people and warehouse space. We had a 17,000 square foot warehouse at one point, and we're processing trailer loads of books every couple of weeks. So we basically would buy books, run them through our program that I sort of custom made. So I took some components of BookScouter and some components from Amazon stuff and tried to make a lot of automated decisions about that, how to handle that inventory. So we were processing lots and lots of books through here. Our software then had to due to some changes with our Amazon stuff, we had to start fulfilling those books out of our warehouse. So we started shelving them and keeping track of where these were. So the bookstore thing was a couple of years sort of business where we spent a lot of effort on the software to make that work and trying to figure out how the people in the warehouse and the logistics of all that worked. So that one went on for a couple of years. What we eventually just found was that we're not very good at running a warehouse. We were trying to run our warehouse more like a Silicon Valley startup where people could come and go when they wanted, and it just wasn't good for that type of environment. So we sold the warehouse and that business off to somebody else and we sold that off more recently, but we started focusing on the software side of that much more early. And so we started developing software, sort of took our custom-made software that we made in-house and started making that available for other people, and that's when Seller Labs was born, which is kind of the bulk of our emphasis right now. That's a software company that makes tools for e-commerce sellers like that.
Okay.
So that's a quick walkthrough of a couple of the major ones, I guess.
Yeah, so what's interesting is it seems like you have sort of let the market and the situation and how things are going kind of drive where you go with things. Like you decided that really warehousing wasn't kind of your core thing, so you shifted into the software, which sounds like software kind of is one of the things that you're at the core of it really good at.
Yeah, definitely. I've found, personally and within the our core sort of team of people that we have, software is definitely what we're good at. So the warehouse seemed like an opportunity. On paper it all made a lot of sense, but it just boiled down to we're not very good at running a warehouse type of operation. Didn't enjoy that, and there were bigger opportunities elsewhere. So we found an opportunity to sell that to somebody else, and they're running with that now. And we're focused on the software side. So it's very much a listen to what the market is and find where you're successful. And I think a big portion of at least being sort of a serial entrepreneur where you're trying different things is knowing when to quit something or when to get rid of it, because you can spend a lot of time running down that road with very little return. So
yeah, sure. Well, and it sounds like you've kind of figured out what you're good at. So I would think that kind of makes making future decisions easier, right? So you kind of know, should I go into this or not? And it seems like you've got some intelligence now to kind of guide what direction it makes sense to go in with new projects.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, I don't like to feel too pigeonholed in, so I still like to expand out of where we are. But even the experience that we had running that has taught me enough stuff that I think, if we were to find an opportunity like that, I think we could do it more intelligently.
Sure.
It doesn't completely limit me from trying something like that again, but you definitely get a little bit more wise after you've done it and had some experience with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now, when you started your first business, did you have any business knowledge or any business experience?
Well, when I started my very first business, it was actually kind of interesting. Like I said, I was 16 years old when my parents helped me start this computer store. And so I was actually I think I was a senior in high school, enrolled at college courses. So I remember sitting in a college accounting class, and they were starting to talk about your cost of goods sold and your retained earnings and some of these very abstract concepts that would not make sense to anybody who's never been in business before.
Uh-huh.
But sort of working at the same time I was taking classes for it made a whole lot more sense to me. Like I could actually print out a balance sheet from my QuickBooks and see what retained earnings was and sort of see how that math worked out, how it works in something that I was directly involved with. So that was really educational. So I didn't have a lot of formal business training. My degree was actually in telecommunications administration, but there were a few business classes along the way. But I still do, recall some of those lessons and things from, those early marketing and accounting classes.
Sure. Well, so how much of what you know about business and entrepreneurship now, percentage-wise, if you could just take a kind of a wild guess, what would you say the percentage is that you learned in college versus the percentage that you learned kind of the hard way or just on the ground?
Oh, I'd have to say, what I learned in college is probably, 5 or 10% of what I would sort of say that I know now. Like I said, I didn't have a business major. That may have been a little bit more helpful.
Sure.
But, just those, they were basically your accounting 101 classes and marketing 101 classes. You get a little bit of a base, and it's a nice thing to work off of, but you learn so much more by doing than you do by sort of reading from a book.
Yeah. Actually, so you had kind of a framework to apply lessons that you were learning in, which I think is probably one of the things that makes it so difficult to absorb most of the information that we learn in college is we don't really have a framework to learn it in. What is the most important thing that you've learned about business on this journey?
Most important thing? Wow, that's a broad question. I would say I think that most every business decision you have has some element of risk, and so I think trying to figure out and trying to measure that risk and determine how risky something is kind of at the crux of what an entrepreneur does, I guess. So even day-to-day decisions are all sort of do I spend X number of hours working on this? Is the return worth it? So they're all sort of estimates of what's the cost to benefit ratio for a lot of these things.
How do you do that cost benefit analysis of, you've got so many hours in a day and you can spend your time doing this or spend your time doing that? Because it's one of the things that our listeners really are struggling with in many cases, right? Because they're working a full-time job, trying to start a business on the side. They probably have a family, they have other commitments. So time is a really difficult thing for them. So what are some tips that you give our listeners as to kind of how to decide what do you do, what do you not do?
Well, I think I'm sort of an analytical kind of guy, so I kind of break it all down to the dollars. If you know what your time is worth in terms of dollars per hour, I would not do things that are less than that. And determining what your dollars per hour is really kind of arbitrary. I mean, if you're working a job where you make $60,000 a year, it's fairly easy math to figure you're making $30 an hour while you're working at that job. But you've got spare time on things like that, so trying to figure out what that is sometimes difficult. I'd argue for most people it's higher than what you think. Time is worth more than what you think it's worth. But that's should be a fairly easy baseline. If I'm making $30 an hour, is what I'm doing right now worth $30 an hour in the long run?
Were there times before you kind of figured that out? Were there times when you would spend your time on maybe a $2 an hour task when you could have been focusing on a $70, $80 an hour task?
Well, there certainly is some of those things when when you're like the sole person running a business. You certainly are doing some things that are probably below what you like. You could hire somebody to replace and do that task for you. But some of that comes down to what's your time to then manage that person. So if you're doing a job that's perhaps you could find somebody to do for $5 online, like Fiverr is a very popular sort of outsourcing thing. Mm-hmm. If you could find somebody to do that task for $5, but how much time is it going to take you to manage that task, to document it and to create it and produce it and approve it and pay for it? That sort of adds up and sort of adds a layer of complexity to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people don't really consider sometimes the amount of time that it takes to manage and to properly manage people and select talent. Now, you have a number of people working in your company. Tell us a little bit about how you have found the right people to work for you and how you've kind of figured out how to manage them and motivate them to do the best work that they can do.
Yeah, dealing with people is one of the hardest things. Making those hiring decisions is very, very difficult, and I don't know that I'm an expert at it. I'm still learning about that. In fact, I've got an interview after this with a new potential customer service person, and
cool.
Trying to identify, like, is this the right person is very hard. A lot of times it's easier just to say, yeah, you look like you're qualified, go ahead and start. But I'm learning, and I don't know how much of this comes with, like, as your organization gets bigger, you have to sort of be more picky, if that's part of it. Certainly the first sort of employee you have should be somebody that's sort of compliments you and somebody that kind of can just get things done, in my opinion. You can have them, have them handle a task that maybe they don't know how to do, but they can just figure it out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That kind of person that can just figure it out regardless of their prior knowledge or, external resources, that's really kind of the sort of key person, I think, early on to try and get stuff done, is because you need somebody that you don't have to manage 100%. You can give them sort of a high-level task, and they'll just figure it out and get it done.
Well, and that's interesting because, you make a really good point in that early on, you don't have the time to hold hands and babysit people, so you more need that ability to just throw a problem at somebody, have them just go figure out how to deal with it. Does that change as your business gets larger?
I think it's always useful to have that person aboard. So, because there's always going to be stuff like, as a sort of business owner, there's always, like, maybe our core business, for example, for me is developing software, but we still have to, still have to figure out how to, get snacks in the snack room and do all this kind of. There's always there are tasks you wouldn't ever sort of say is on the job description, but the stuff has to get done. So there's those kind of things that always need to get done. And then there's sometimes like larger tasks, like we don't really know how to, I'm trying to think of a good example. We don't know how to hire a recruiter now. So we're hiring a recruiter to find talent for us, but we don't really know how to identify a recruiter. So we need somebody to go figure out how to find the person that's going to help us find people.
Right. You don't even know what to look for since that's a skill set you've never hired before, but you need somebody to go research what makes a recruiter good and what makes a recruiter bad, right?
Yeah, there's all those kind of things. You can talk about anybody you're sort of outsourcing, recruiters or accountants or lawyers or all that kind of stuff are all, like, they're not your core business ever, unless one of those businesses, I guess, but you still need people to help you figure some of that stuff you need to run a business out.
What's the one thing that you wish somebody told you before you started your businesses?
I guess sort of one of the things I see a lot of people who want to start a business try, like, a lot of times the thing that holds them back is they think they have to have the perfect product first. Like, if I just finish this feature, or if I just had this done, and I'm going to work on that for the next 3 weeks to get it done, and then I'll be able to turn this into a business or launch this product or whatever. I think just the ability to put something out there and see how people like it. Like, if you release something, make a new product. In software world, we're launching a product. If you're selling stuff on Amazon, just buy and sell something and see how it works and get feedback. That first, just getting something out there is better than nothing. I think that's a big obstacle for a lot of people.
It's interesting because I want to talk a little bit about the software industry, but the software industry is one that I worked in for some time myself, so I have a little bit of perspective there. It's one where I think putting something out that is imperfect is much more common and acceptable than it is in other industries. I think we're all familiar with that version 1.0 of the software that might not be quite as stable as everybody would like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good lesson for any type of business. But what I want to ask you is, I know we have folks who are listening who are interested in getting in the software business. I think we have some app developers. We have other kind of online folks that are interested in doing this sort of thing. What are some specific tips or pieces of information that you would want to pass on to somebody who wants to start specifically a software business?
So, tell my competitors what I'm doing, huh? I'll just tackle that from a very high level, I guess. It's a lot about getting something out there, and then not just getting it out there, but then specifically asking for feedback. Like, you have to. A lot of times, I think people assume that all the people in the world are just like them and will like what they like.
Mm.
And sometimes, part of having a good product is having some good intuition about that. If you think something that's completely out there is going to be successful and it's just not, then maybe that's not a good fit. But a lot of times, especially with some of the products we've launched, we launched it with sort of in a broad, sort of flexible format. But we found like people, after it's been out there for 6 months and people have had the ability to sign up and use it, you get feedback from them, or you can look and see how they're using it, and then you can tailor more things specifically to that use case.
Mm.
So I don't know in the world of app development if that involves it's a little bit more time intensive to actually create a release of an app, but getting something out there and releasing it to a core group or a small niche that is a little bit targeted to. I think that, and then listening specifically for feedback. Our Facebook groups have been really good for that. Definitely just like customer service sort of contact us forums are a good way to hear about that sort of feedback. So those are all kinds of things that early on in a software development company, I think I would be kind of the one guy, at least if you're not doing customer service yourself, you ought to be pretty intimately involved in metrics around that to see where the problems are happening and what people are asking for.
Yeah, very, very interesting in that one of the things that I've heard a couple of times from some of the larger businesses that we've been talking to lately is that the real gem of having customers or having users, and the point you just made was just recently made by a couple of folks who have a dog walking company. And it's the point is really that, once you've got some customers, you've got some users, you've got the ability to get information from them about not only how to make your product better, but then what might be the next product. Have you had experiences where you've spoken with existing customers or users and then found that, well, not only do they have good feedback about this product, but maybe there's another product that they want that I should create?
That's the very core of what I do, I think. So I'll give you a specific example of that. It's like one of our core products right now is a product called Feedback Genius that we have sellers on Amazon use Feedback Genius, and they send automated messages to their buyers to thank them for their purchase and ask them for feedback. We developed that sort of initially with our book reselling company, where we were interested in our seller rating. So on Amazon, you have a seller rating that tells as a seller how you're doing. But what we found by attending trade shows, by listening to our customer support people, to having conversations with customers, is that a lot of our users are using Feedback Genius. They're small manufacturers. They're manufacturing their own products. And so on Amazon, they care less about their seller rating than they do about the specific products they're selling.
Okay.
And so a lot of them are using Feedback Genius to help, instead of soliciting seller reviews like we sort of originally envisioned, they're using it to solicit product reviews. And it works really well for that because we have a very flexible way of handling that. But our next launch, in fact, this is a product is just sort of like in beta soft launch this week, is a product called Snagshot, where it's specifically targeted at those small manufacturers who are selling products online and need product reviews. And so Feedback Genius continues to work as it did. It continues to work really well for both sort of use cases, but our next product is one that's specifically targeted at those small manufacturers, and it's a whole different platform, whole different concept. But we feel like we have an existing customer base that really needs this. So we've learned from what they needed and iterated on that to create something brand new that I think is going to be really, really successful.
I think the core message that I hear from these interviews, and we're coming up on like the 150th interview here of a successful entrepreneur on the How to Quit Working show, listening to your customers is just a theme that comes up over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it probably works. It's the same thing that small, big businesses should all sort of do. The customer is the one who should really dictate a lot of your product direction and where you should go with stuff.
Absolutely.
That's where your dollars come from. You need to sort of follow where that. If you spend a lot of time on research and development and never get any feedback about it, you're just going to be spending research and development dollars on stuff that may never actually be useful to anybody.
Yeah, that's where your dollars come from. I think that's the most important point that you made there. Brandon, what does success mean to you?
Oh, from a sort of personal level, I guess it just means I like the ability to, not have to worry about paying bills and have the sort of flexibility to do things that I like and to, take a vacation with my family when I want to. Just having that sort of flexibility and ability to not have to worry about finances from a day-to-day basis and having been so completely tied to something that you can't leave. So a lot of like what we've built into our organization is the ability to kind of leave and have a working vacation if you want, or work from home. Still ways you can still have some flexibility in your day-to-day life as well.
Excellent, great stuff. Brandon, what's the last piece of advice that you'd want to leave our listeners with?
I don't know. I guess just some encouragement that it's. A lot of people stumble over like trying to get started, and it's you can figure it out as you go. Just that's just sort of the motivation, I guess, is like if you are dedicated to it and follow something through, you can make it go just about anything. Amazing advice. Brandon, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your hard-earned advice and knowledge and expertise and experience with our listeners. I appreciate it. I know they appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck with everything that you've got going on in the future. And tell us about where we can go to get more information about you or any of your companies. Oh, thanks, Jeff. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today, and I enjoy doing these kind of things. If you're interested in more about our specific things, we have a company called RoundSphere is a parent company for the two others. So RoundSphere is sort of our software development arm. Our products are bookscouter.com, book SCOUTER, that's the one that you can sell books back or use if you have a small book operation. And then sellerlabs.com is our software company where we make products for e-commerce sellers. Excellent. We will link that all up below. Brandon, thanks so much for being on the show, and best of luck with everything in the future. All right, thanks, Jeff. What great advice from Brandon about starting a software company. He started multiple, and I know we have a number of folks out there in the audience who are interested in starting their own software companies, whether that's apps or websites or what have you. And I hope that this information was helpful for you. Some really neat specific things that are kind of unique to the software industry that Brandon talked about. So great stuff as always. Check out his websites. They'll all be linked up below the show on howtoquitworking.com. You can check out the companies that he started and the things that he's doing. So do that, and then if you're really ready to get serious about quitting your job and starting a business and you want to have someone there alongside you, guiding you and showing you the pitfalls that you don't want to fall into and showing you the ways that you can ensure the success of your business, go to howtoquitworking.com/coaching and get more information about How to Quit Working coaching, and set up a call with Heather, who will be happy to talk to you about how she and How to Quit Working coaching can help you. Go again to howtoquitworking.com/coaching, and guess what's going to happen next time on the How to Quit Working show? We're going to talk to another amazing person just like you who quit their job and started an amazing business. And until then,
Thanks for joining us on the How to Quit Working show. Tune in next time when we'll talk to another amazing person just like you who is now living the ultimate life of freedom and doing it on their terms. If you want to learn how to quit working and get these episodes delivered directly to you, visit howtoquitworkingshow.com.